Hey guys, so I did actually read my arc on time for this week, and oh boy, do I have feelings, because this is a book that was so personally related to my life that I basically had an existential crisis while I was reading it. But one, I think that relationship to this book is very niche, and two, as I've been thinking about it after I finished it, there may be something weird with the structure to this one. So I have tried to kind of contain my initial really emotional reaction to it to do a good review for you guys today. So the book in question that I'm talking about is An Academic Affair by Jodi McAllister. This is an ARC, so thank you to the publisher in Edelweiss for my advanced copy, but it will be out on Tuesday, so it will very soon be available to you if this is something that you are interested in. An Academic Affair is the story of Sadie Shaw and Jonah Fisher. Sadie and Jonah originally met when they were both literature majors at their undergraduate university, and they were basically in a English class together, and one of them had an interpretation about a poem that the other person did not agree with, and it started a decades-long rivalry between them. The book actually opens with a series of snapshots about their 5 original attempts at a ceasefire in their running feud, because this starts early in undergrad. There's a ceasefire when they're both trying to get the same undergraduate honors medal. They end up getting masters around the same time, and also then PhDs around the same time. And at one point they end up actually living in the same share house. And so the beginning of the book, in a really rapid fire way, shows you those different events going through their relationship, again, when they've attempted their ceasefires, because the book essentially is the story of their 6th and final ceasefire. The plot of the book actually really gets started as Sadie and Jonah are coming up to their last year of being what is essentially, in their context, lecturers. This book does not take place in the American context. It takes place in the European context. And so while a lot of the academic structures are similar to what I am about to be up against as someone trying to finish their PhD, there's a little bit some unique stuff to that doesn't map one-to-one onto the way that the United States structures their academic professional ladder, if there is one. But basically, they're both coming up to the end of a lecturer contract, and they really would love some more permanent jobs rather than having to string together a series of, contract jobs, essentially, where if budgets go, they get cut. And they both end up being able to apply for this same job. Now, they both are qualified, their specialties are different, but there are some different personal matters that kind of impact this. So Jonah is from a old academic fame family. His dad, Christian, is a very well-renowned literature scholar, but clearly also the type of older, wealthy white dude that you kind of just want to punch in the face regularly. And Jonah also feels that way. He has a really fractious relationship with his dad, and his dad encouraged not sibling love, but sibling rivalry between him, his brother, and his sister. Sadie, her dad walked out on her and her older sister, Chess, or Francesca, and then her mom died of cancer not long after. And so Sadie was basically raised by her sister, Chess, and has a very strong relationship with her. And while Sadie and Jonah are trying to get this same job, Jonah's sister, her husband leaves her for his secret second family, and it turns out that, her dad is really upset with her. He wants to cut her off financially, and this job is where Jonah's sister lives. And so Jonah has like this deep emotional need for this job because he wants to be there for his sister, because the rest of his family won't be. Sadie has come from nothing and she is determined to make her way in the world. And so she also wants this job to show that, you know, she is worth a permanent job. And so they duke it out. Sadie gets the job. Jonah kind of blows it a little bit because he's just like really emotional. But Sadie does get the job. And as Chess is reading over Sadie's contract, because Chess is a lawyer, she mentions offhand to Sadie that there is a partner hire possibility in her contract. Now, a partner hire is when if a university hires one academic and their partner, husband, wife, whoever they are partnered to, is also an academic. There are sometimes provisions where both can get hired at the same university, understanding that it can be very difficult to move an entire marriage, family, whatever, if there isn't a guaranteed job for the other person in that relationship. And Sadie, who knows how important her relationship with her sister is, and knowing that Jonah's relationship with his own is fractured, and also really hating Jonah's dad as well, has this insane idea where she goes to Jonah after years and years and years of fighting and says, "Hey, do you want to get married so that I can bring you to this place that I'm going with a job as a partner hire?" And it's insane, but Jonah really wants to be there for his sister, and he says yes. And so they enter essentially an academic marriage of convenience that could possibly get them in legal trouble, and go to work at the same university. Now, as you can already tell from my description, there is a lot of interpersonal family stuff going on in this book, and I haven't even gotten to what happens to Sadie and Chess's relationship when Chess realizes what Sadie is about to do. Jonah's sister has 3 kids, a set of younger twins, and an older, like 11-year-old child who uses they, them pronouns. And there's a lot. There's like Jonah's dad obviously factors, but also like his mom, who has a really weird relationship with his dad. And Jonah also has a brother who, y'all, there's a lot going on, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I'm doing a poor job kind of describing it, but it really does work together fairly well for most of the novel. And novels that have a strong, like, it's not just about the couple, right? It's about their family, it's about them as people, and then them kind of working together through that. I really felt that for most of the novel, this was really doing that well. It's also an exploration of academia and how academic universities and other institutions are kind of being slimmed down or turned to a business model that is not how academia is really meant to work. And Sadie and Jonah are both strong union members, and this will eventually factor into the climax of the novel. But really the heart of their relationship is that Jonah admits very early on that he is not just marrying Sadie because he wants to be near his sister. He is essentially he falls first, and then Sadie eventually falls. She does not fall harder, because it's about the time when the slow burn of them really coming to like trust each other and see each other as less of caricatures of their like competitive nature, but more as like real people with issues and people who are funny or sweet or whatever. That's a wonderful part of the novel, like I said, that explores also their family relationships and academia. And then the novel kind of turns, and basically Jonah tells her how he feels, and then they're together. And at that point, the pacing of the novel really does start to suffer, I think, because it becomes very difficult to really believe the depth of Sadie's feelings. At one point, she even says, what if this relationship is only working because of Again, there are a lot of things wrapped into this that I don't have time to go into, but she's in a very, very emotionally distraught kind of situation in a number of ways at that point. And she'll even say like, well, what if this is just something that happened because we're in close proximity, we're living together, we're pretending to be married, and I'm emotionally distressed and I feel alone. And the novel never really addresses that. You're just supposed to kind of believe that Sadie has kind of also realized her feelings, but I only ever felt like that was really well explained in depth from Jonah's angle, because this is a dual POV novel, and never really from Sadie's. The novel didn't actually end like with some things that I thought might have been an issue becoming an issue, which I really loved. Actually, for the most part, a lot of people know that Jonah and Sadie are not really married for real, and I really thought that was going to come back to bite them. But instead, the novel just kind of ends. Like, there is some, like, you know, fourth act shenanigans. I will say that this is not one in which they, like, break up for basically no reason and have to come back together. I did really love that. If you're a person who seeks out romance novels and you're like, please don't do this if it doesn't make sense. This book doesn't do that. I think part of the reason is because it is a slow enough burn that, and the things that happen in the climax are like external, so they don't really need to do that necessarily. I really, really enjoyed that as the idea. I loved that that happened. It felt way more natural. But the ending just kind of like yada yadas itself away. Again, after a slow burn covering a lot of space and time with their relationship, I kind of just felt like the book ran out of room, which did not feel satisfying. I honestly felt shocked when I turned the page and I hit the epilogue chapter of like, you know, there's always that one that's like a year later, 2 years later, like whatever. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is not resolved. And a lot of it apparently happened off screen. That wasn't great. All of this is to say that I had an initial very emotional reaction to this book, again, because it felt so close to a reality that I am dreading, that I am going to have to experience soon, that I am going to have to survive soon. And seeing Sadie and Jonah trying to navigate it, and also talking to other people that are like, you know, before them and after them in the space of the journey. And you know, it's touched on a lot of, honestly, like my own anxieties, and the author Jodi McAllister speaks about how this is her own experience as well, as someone who's also an academic and has done this. And so basically talks about how everything that happened either happened to her or happened to somebody that she knew, and she took inspiration from that. She does mention that she does not know anyone who got married for a partner hire, but she's very honest where she's like, had someone offered this to me, I would have said yes. And I felt that, even though I already have a partner, and therefore am also thinking a lot about partner hires and how we are going to survive the job market. Once I kind of like removed that emotional reaction, I was able to see some of the things that weren't as great, such as the kind of like lack of feeling or depth to Sadie's emotions, both before and after they get together. Jonah, in that sense, is definitely more emotionally fleshed out with his relationship with Sadie, less with his family, whereas Sadie has a very emotional relationship with her sister. However, that again is a plot line that is resolved in the end in a way that felt a little unsatisfying and weird. There is clearly a suggestion that there will be another book in this series based on some stuff, which I would be very interested in reading, but I am a little nervous about the whole way that the end came together, because that just felt rushed and unfinished and weird. So I do know that Jodi McAllister has written some other books, so if you've read those, please let me know down in the comments if that is like a trait of hers, or if it just happened to this specific book, because I'm not sure, because I've not read any of her other stuff. But yeah, Would I suggest that you read this if you're interested? Yes, but I would suggest having some sort of niche interest in it, in the topic, in the issues being discussed, and just like the larger plot line, because the relationship itself is so done. But again, I will hopefully be able to read the next book in the series, and we'll see if this was just like a little bit of a blip problem or if this is something that reoccurs. But like I said, this is an arc, but it comes out tomorrow if you are interested. And I just need to go recover now from the existential crisis that this book has caused. So I'm gonna go do that. Thanks, guys. Bye.